Yeah, I intentionally made it with a TH because a lot of people in Singapore are not so good at
I'm
TH.
German, sorry.
Oh, yeah, so you render counterpart.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now that your tongues are all warmed up, our topic is the link between food, biodiversity, and climate change. So let's be clear on these terms first. Everyone knows what food is, so I won't ask you about that. But what's biodiversity? Can you tell your partner what's an example of biodiversity and what's an example of lack of biodiversity? Go ahead, please.
Good example. In Europe, I find a nice
the variety of all living things, either
just green
ecosystem globally. Can talk about the diversity,
get rid of all the
Very good example. Okay, yeah, so yeah, I remember when I first came to Singapore and I was told that just at Bukit Timah Nature Reserve, there's more species than the different plant and animal species than there are in all of Canada. Wow, I said, that's really incredible. But of course, what's happening is the forests in Singapore and elsewhere are getting cut down. And then we build, or in Indonesia, palm oil plantations. So that's not biodiversity. And of course, everyone knows what climate change is. But what's one cause of climate change? And what's one effect of climate change? So maybe one person can mention a cause and their partner can mention one effect. So maybe you can catch him up on what we've been doing. Okay, and then one last question. How worried are you about the long-term consequences of climate change? I mean, do you wake up in the middle of the night screaming when you think of what's going on with climate change? Does it really, in your mind, is it one of the big things that you worry about? That 5 years or 15 years from now, Singapore is going to be flooded along with Maldives, etc., etc. Can you ask your partner about that? How much does that worry you?
Then when you think
So, Robert, how about your partner? How worried is he?
Doesn't seem to be working.
He's not worried because he thinks people are going to change and do something to. People don't seem to be doing that much about it. So I don't know, maybe they feel powerless, or they think it's someone else's responsibility, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, in schools today, everyone hears about it, it's in the newspaper, etc. Everyone is warning us. And one term I learned just last year is Anthropocene. This term, I'm a bit slow, the term was coined in 2000. You know, anthro means humans, and scene is like the geologic period, like the Pleistocene. So what they're saying now is that we're in a new geologic age, the Anthropocene, where humans are the big factor affecting the environment. So 200 years ago, there weren't so many of us, that we didn't have so much technology, we weren't having such a big effect on the environment, but now we are really big time, profound effect on the environment. So let me just show this short video made by Moby, you know, the musician, that summarizes a lot of things I'll be saying. Okay, yeah, so that basically summarizes what I'm going to be presenting. So, remember we're talking about biodiversity and climate change. So later I'm going to talk about the role of food, but what are things that, besides food, that you already do to protect biodiversity? Or what do you already do to reduce climate change? Something besides food. Can you tell the person next to you, please? Something you already do.
Besides
some of the ideas. I'm curious to know. How about Robert's partner? What does Robert do to protect biodiversity?
I think public transport.
Okay. How does that protect biodiversity?
You reduce carbon emission.
Okay.
And then you help nature to grow better.
Okay. Right, because yeah, the plants can grow better when there's when the air is fresher.
Yes.
Yeah. Or I think I met Robert before. He was, I think, at McRitchie or something, right? Some hike over there. Yeah. And so by valuing the forests that we still have left, that's a good way to protect biodiversity. Okay, and to reduce climate change, like taking public transport, walking, etc., is a good way. But the main thing that I want to talk about is how, with our fingers, chopsticks, spoons, forks, whatever else you like to eat with, we can address biodiversity and climate change. And the two main ideas I hope that you take away from tonight, if you don't already agree, is that eating meat is wasting food, and meat worsens climate change. In other words, meat equals heat. So let's start with the first one. If you, I think once you think about it, it's pretty obvious. The animals whom we eat, they need to eat a lot of food to produce just 1 kg of meat, like we saw in the video. So here's a little quiz. No grades, don't worry. When children grow up, what age do they gain the most weight in 1 year? Is it when they're from birth to 1 year old, early adolescence like 12 or 13, or late teens like 18, 19? So can you ask your partner? What do you think? Yes, absolutely. Not percent, the absolute number of kgs.
After 1 year, it's very easy. My thought is after 1 year, I know how long I could.
Okay, the answer is early adolescence. So, girls develop a little bit quicker than boys. So it's 12 years old for girls and 13 for boys, approximately 5 kgs. But then the question is, how many kgs of food did these early adolescents eat in that 1 year when they gained 5 kgs? Now, I don't know the answer to this question. I went to the central library. I talked to librarians. I said, I can't find this on the internet. Can you find it for me? They looked and looked. They couldn't find it either. But I think we can come up with an estimate. I mean, just think about how much you eat now. We're all adults now. So maybe you eat more than a 12-year-old, although I have a 13-year-old nephew. He eats a lot. How much do you think it is? How much do you think you're going to eat in 2015? And then we'll divide it by 5. Okay, go ahead. Discuss with your partner. 2015, what's the weight of the food? We won't mention the drinks, only the food. How much do you think it's going to weigh?
What do you think you eat 1 year? Right? 1 kg?
I think it's like 1 kg then
So 1 day is 1 hour.
Okay, let's just hear. Like I say, I don't know the answer. Just let's hear your wild guess.
540
Five,
40
540.
kg per year.
Wow. So more than 1 kg a day.
Yes.
Okay.
1.5 like that.
Okay. Well, okay. I haven't heard any estimate that high. That's good. How about anyone have what they think is a lot lower than that? Less than a kg a day? 300 kgs in a year, so less than 1 per day. Okay, let's get very conservative, and we'll say that it's 1 kg a week. Okay, not 1 kg a day, 1 kg a week. So that's 52 kgs in a year. And remember, they're gaining 5 kgs in that year. So the ratio is 1 to 10, a very conservative ratio. So it's going to be somewhat similar for the animals whom we eat. For the cows, it's not the same for each species, but the idea is for them to gain for us to get just 1 kg of meat, we have to feed them many kgs of plant food. Grains, soybeans, things like that. And that's why eating meat is wasting food. Okay, because we have this cow, starts little, more and more until they're ready for slaughter, which is only a little bit more than a year. So, how many humans live on the earth now? Any idea?
7
7
billion.
billion.
Actually, I went to the internet today. There's some population counter. It's almost 7.4 billion now. It was 7.3 and getting near 4. And wow, it's going up so fast. You know, when you look at the screen, the number keeps getting bigger really fast. But how many animals do we eat in a year? But we'll make it small. We'll just talk about the land animals, not the marine animals. Any guess?
70 billion.
Yeah, it's something like 70 billion. So we're feeding them all this food in order to get the meat. And it's like, and the ratio is like at least, well, for chickens, some people say it's 3 to 1. So, but cows more than 10 to 1, etc. And if you want to look at how many animals are eaten, there's another counter that goes up really fast, different types of animals, even camels, they count in that. So the thing is that meat consumption around the world is increasing as affluence increases in countries like China, India. In some countries, meat consumption is going down, but most countries, it's going up, and overall, it's going up. And you've probably seen the statistic that if everyone consumed like we do in Singapore, we need 3 Earths to grow all the food. And just some statistics, 10% of the cereal harvest, in other words, like the grains, 1/3 of the cereal harvest, and 90% of the soybeans are fed to animals. Okay, so what does that mean? All this wasted food that we have to feed to the animals. It means we have to cut down forests, or in Indonesia, burn down forests. Okay, we burn down, we cut down the forests, we lose the biodiversity. And we have to use so much water to grow all this unnecessary food. And of course, the animals consume a lot of water, and they create a lot of pollution, and it takes a lot of energy to grow and transport this food. So according to some statistics, and you can find a wide variety in statistics, the single largest human use of land is not housing, it's growing food for livestock and grazing the livestock. The Amazon is a good example. Of the forest that's been cut down, 70% of it is used for raising meat. Just the food, just the grain and soybean grown in the US to feed to animals could feed 1 billion people. And then with water, 8% of all the water that we use goes to the livestock for irrigation and for their own drinking. You've probably seen statistics like this. You know, every year there's World Water Day promoted by the UN, and there's stats like this. Rice uses a surprisingly large amount of water, but even though rice is probably the highest plant food, it's still lower than any of the meats. And then it isn't just that the animals are using water, but they're polluting the water as well. So, you know, the waste of the animals, they're all crowded together like this, creates rivers of waste that feed into our water supply. So it's polluting the soil, the air, and also the water. Okay, so remember reason number 1, eating meat is wasting food. Can you ask your partner, does that make sense to you? Any caveats, any reasons why maybe it's not so bad? Can you ask your partner?